Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabalais, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. And welcome back to Matter of Facts podcast. This might be the biggest daggum collection of people we've ever had on this show before, with a host, and a co-host, and 3 guests, basically.
Yeah, I'm a guest. That's right.
I mean, at this point in time, Gillian is probably just a second co-host.
That's right.
She's not hardly ever on anymore.
I'm the assistant to the assistant.
The assistant to the assistant regional manager.
Yes.
Wait, does that make me? Who's Dwight then?
There's Dwight. You're Dwight, and then I'm the secretary.
There you go.
So, Andrew, introduce to the audience, I guess, the 2 guests on your side. I'm sitting here with my wife, Gillian.
Hi, Gillian. Nice to meet you.
Oh, hi. Hello, everybody.
Y'all are going to be so awkward today.
So,
It usually happens when it's me and Andrew.
right. You just feel the chemistry.
Something.
So this is Karina.
Hello.
This is Karina. This is my friend Josh, husband and wife.
How's it going?
Yeah, no, I've known you guys for 10 years,
Like 12.
12
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
12.
I married them. I officiated their wedding.
You did.
Oh,
You did a great
seriously?
job.
Yeah.
I didn't know
during
you could
COVID.
do that.
During
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah. I can do all
Really?
kinds of stuff. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
fun.
during COVID. During COVID.
We were supposed to have a destination wedding in Jamaica, and then COVID shut everything down. So I had 46 days to change all the plans and get us married in our backyard.
Oh, God. You
Yeah.
poor
And Bobo
woman.
did a great job. He took it really seriously. I was not saying that I didn't think he would, but like I expected Andrew to just be Andrew, but Andrew was all magistrate guy.
It's
It's
all
your guys'
business.
marriage.
He did
It's-
good.
Yeah, he did really
He did
good. He
Yeah.
did
Did
really
y'all
good.
at
I'm
least...
Much.
I'm actually doing another one next weekend.
Well,
Thanks.
that's cool.
So
Did y'all at least make it to Jamaica?
Nope.
Still haven't gone.
Oh.
Our lives just kind of took a different turn. As fact, especially when COVID hit, I guess.
Yeah.
Really seeing how the government can kind of take control of everything.
what? The government?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
And
God.
restrict. I mean, even with our wedding in the backyard, there was still restrictions with you can only have so many people. But we said, you know what? It's family and our closest friends. We'll do what we want to do, and if somebody has a problem with it, they'll let us know. But I've got
I said, if the cops show up, then, well, I guess they can eat and enjoy the time. And we kept
Right.
social distancing as best we could.
both
We had
our
a couple
neighbors.
weirdos with masks show up, like that was going to stop anything. But
But both our neighbors were really open to everything with the situation and understanding, so it didn't really bother anything or anybody in the neighborhood. And yeah, so we still went on with life, and at this point we said, you know, let's not do the whole Jamaica thing, and let's trek out west to Yellowstone, you know, instead. So
Sweet.
we drove across the nation and went out to West Yellowstone and did rustic camping out there, just the 2 of us, and living off of firewood and
Josh.
venison, and
Okay, you can stop there.
loved it.
Wouldn't that have been so much more fun?
I'm trying to get Andrew to come out with us next time. It's a blast.
It's fun.
Yeah, well, when the audio drops for this, everybody's going to be wondering, like, why did I make you stop? Well, Phil is giving me that look of, well, see, honey, they do it. Why can't we do
Truck
it?
tent is awesome. It takes me, without his help, I can get it set up in approximately 17 minutes by myself. With him, we can do it in under 10.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
they're actually going to be joining us on the campsite. So
excited.
yeah, they are. So we'll get into that here in a second because they are new to prepper camp. But I guess the reason why, like, I wanted to have them on and stuff is I've talked to both of them about guns prepping for a long time, and
You even brought out your guns after everybody left the wedding.
yeah, I did.
And I have like the best wedding.
Yeah.
That sounds like Andrew.
Yeah, she
That's
has.
the kind of officiants that we have in the South.
Yes.
Right. Well, you have because didn't you have like a fur?
Yeah, I had like a fur shawl.
cover.
Yeah, fur
Yeah.
shawl, and then you had your wedding dress on, and then she's got my AR like slung.
Sweet.
It's
So,
the hottest
pretty cool,
picture.
yeah.
I love
Well,
it.
we need to recreate that, and then you can put the night vision on too.
Oh, I don't know. Then I don't know. You and your night vision goggles. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's
But no,
awesome.
so yeah, recently, like I've been talking to you guys a lot more about prepping, and you guys recently have just kind of gotten back, or not really back into it, but you guys have really been exploring the idea of preparedness a lot more. And I think that trip to
Definitely taking the
Yellowstone,
idea a little more seriously.
that, and then I feel like ever since you guys went to Yellowstone though too, like you guys really have started to dive into it. Like, what can I do? Self-sufficiency. You guys are driving across the U.S. Like, how can I take what I have, and you just need to fit everything you can in your truck, and you still want to have room. It's like you have to take everything out of the bed of the truck to put a tent up. Well, you don't want to sit there and keep taking a ton of crap out every single night.
Right.
So you guys really, I feel like you guys have really felt like, I feel like you guys have really looked at your system and slimmed stuff down. What do we need? What don't we need?
Oh, we
And
have
you've
the
prepared for
very,
that.
very bare basic.
Hmm.
Cast iron totes with the cooking utensils that we need. We'd bring a big old cooler with, frozen meats, keep it down at the bottom, especially when we're doing that, to kind of keep everything cold above it. And then, when we were out in Western Yellowstone, that's when we would take out the venison, because at that point it's thawed. We had our dog with us, a little yellow lab, and he's the best little travel partner ever. And we sat out there, grilled over an open fire, and ate off some of the wooden logs that we had, because we tried, not to do as many dishes as we could out there, because it's a matter of getting water. And of course we traveled with some water with us out in the back of the truck anyways, just to have some fresh water for us. We had our go bags and so forth with our water purifying tablets and everything as well that we wanted to with our camel packs.
We didn't need them, but we
Didn't
had
really
them in
need
case.
them, but yeah, we had them just in case. You just never know. And it was a blast going out there. And ever since our kids have kind of grown up and out of the house now, it kind of gave us the availability now to really kind of explore what we want to do as a couple. And with Andrew being involved in our lives for so long, it was like, let's start venturing more into the preppers thing and going out and doing a lot of rustic camping and backpacking.
So that's what I was going to ask you was, so for a lot of people, a lot of people have a push into the preparedness road. Like for Phil, it was Hurricane Katrina was a big factor in his life as far as prepping. Me, I mean, just living in Michigan and just the idea of the winters that we have. So like I always grew up with, well, Uncle Randy for one was a big influence, but it was, a lot of it was just, parents would stack the freezer with deer. We lose power a lot, so we always had a lot of the lanterns and stuff like that, and so we always do that. But the show Jericho was a big one for me, and it wasn't like a key thing that ever like really pushed me into it. But I watched the show popped up on Netflix, I think it was, or somewhere, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. It has a mushroom cloud in the background. Can't be that, it has to be somewhat good. And that show, honestly, like that got me thinking about preparedness. And that really pushed me to it. So what was your guys's, like, what was your final push that kind of got you into preparedness?
I mean,
wanted to start.
I mean, I would say definitely the COVID situation for us. Growing up here in Michigan as well, same thing. Andrew, it was a matter of family members and so forth, all into the hunting, stacking freezers, making sure we've got plenty of deer and living right in the middle of the Great Lakes, you've got salmon and so forth and trout that you can constantly go after in the summertime. So if you want a little mix on things there, but I mean, basically COVID was the biggest push for us to kind of make that on, if something like this is going to happen and we have to self-sustain ourselves, what can we do to do that kind of thing? And I've always been really into the whole Native American culture up here in Michigan and so forth, and learning about Great Lakes Indians and how they do different live traps and deadfall traps and so forth, and just camping out in the woods. I mean, we would camp every weekend growing up, and then, you kind of get away from it because we are kind of in the city a little bit. But now at this point, our life goal is to get 10 to 40 acres more north from the city, try to be an hour at least away from the biggest city, and kind of go from there. Phil, I saw that look.
He acts like I'm not part of that whole team, but I am on that team. So I'm
Gotcha.
like, stop looking at me like that. I'm ready for some land and build a house away from people.
I hear you. And it took a while for me with Karina, and I think COVID was the biggest thing for Karina as well, just because she's gone out and hunting and so forth too, but I feel like the necessities and she didn't really do a whole lot of camping, I guess, prior to me and her kind of getting together.
Well, before you, when I was younger, we would camp, but it was not quite as rustic as what we have done in the last couple of years,
Right.
Yeah.
or even when we went up to your parents' property and helped them with the outhouse. And
Yeah, that was fun.
That
Get
was
the well
crazy.
running and so forth. Yeah.
and, that was different. But
So would you say
I-
that the push has been more primitive then, like learning to do more with less and I hate to use the word rough it, but learning how more to rough it.
Yeah. Basically homesteading kind of thing and living basically to where you could be more self-sufficient on, our biggest thing, like when we want to go to preppers camp here is going to be, different things on herbology and so forth, with learning different things and medicinal purposes of different plants and so forth growing in your region. That's one thing that I definitely have no clue about.
I just feel like that meme should pop up with Step Brothers, Gillian. Did we just become best friends?
We just became best friends.
Yeah, because that was
All the little witches in the world are going to come together.
Right.
Well, because Gillian, like, so that class, that was one of your favorite classes.
I took every single one. I mean, there was a couple of presenters last year when I went that were teaching about their expertise in different herbology and
Mushrooms.
there was mushrooms, and there was this amazing woman. I didn't see her on the presenters list this year, but she has her own farm of just herbs and things like that, and she makes tinctures and all that stuff. So I took her class. The only one that I didn't get to do was there, and I think he's going to be back this year, so go and take him. But he leads you on a walk.
A nature walk?
Yeah. And he points out different plants as you're walking by that you usually are just going to, walk past these things.
Right.
And he's like, oh no, this is this, and it can do this for you. So yeah, that really sparked my interest, and it got me down the rabbit hole of, I literally came home and identified every plant in our front and backyard and came back in and was like, Phil, you don't understand. We have so much medicine outside, and it just grows wild.
Well,
So-
but that was one of the cool things that I've told Gillian this in the past, because for the first couple years, Gillian, I think kind of regarded prepper camp as like, well, that's the boys' trip, that's Phil's thing. But I've told her, and I've told a lot of other people, like the interesting thing about prepping is that prepping it's a lifestyle, it's a mentality, it's headspace, and within that headspace, you get everything from homesteading, living off the land, all the way to like the other side of the spectrum, where it's like, like self-defense and firearms and really high-tech security gear, and it's like it all falls under the huge umbrella that is preparedness. Because the idea is that we're trying to harden ourselves against threats, and those threats come from all directions, depending on what your particular threat is you're concerned about, and therefore the remedy becomes very different. So whereas one person might say, we want to be able to live off the land, we want to be more primitive, more rustic, somebody else would say, well, I want to have, like 6 months worth of food put back. And both of those solutions, whether you live off the land or you live out of your freezer, accomplish the same goal. But that's why prepper camp is such an interesting dichotomy, because you do get all these different disciplines all show up at the same time. And Gillian was able to find things at prepper camp that sparked her interest. Absolutely zero of them were anything I would have picked. But that was the point. Mm-hmm. There's things there for me. There's things there for her. There's things there that anybody is going to be interested in. You just have to look through the class schedule and figure out what tweaks your interest, basically.
Yeah, I do feel like we left prepper camp last year stronger preppers than
More
when
well-rounded.
when we initially went in there, because not only did I get stuff, but Piper, she was 10 at the time. She was in under the tents in classes taking notes on how to what was that class? How to process hides and, leathers and things like that. And she's just taking notes on what to do and how to do it. And I'm just like, all right, well, you can't go home and kill all the rabbits in the yard because that's emergency food.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
can't kill them yet. But when we do, we can put into effect everything you're learning in this class.
Well, and she also came back with like she's always expressed an interest career wise of eventually like doing something with animals. I think she vetoed veterinarian when she realized how much schooling was involved. But probably because of her experience at prepper camp, lately she's really latched onto this idea of like training dogs because she met Joel and the crew from Fortress Canine. So prepper camp, I think everybody should go give it a try. And especially for the people that are kind of like interested in this lifestyle and this mindset, there's going to be something there that is right up your alley that you're looking for more information on. And there's also going to be things that probably aren't your area of interest, but sitting in on those classes is still going to at least give you the exposure and plant the seeds in case they become useful one day.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, I can't wait to go out there and learn a few more things that I've just never kind of ventured into, like, like we were talking about earlier, and like we were mentioning freezers, but what happens if you don't have electricity and you lose that, so that's why I kind of want to look into like canning and so forth too, as well, because
They have intro to canning.
you don't have to worry about electricity with the canning other than just, I guess, I don't even know if you do. I mean, you cook it somewhat and stew it and put it in a can
my
and
mom
seal
used
it,
to
right?
can corn and beans out of the garden. And back then, when I was a teenager, I wanted nothing to do with any of that. That was the most boring 6 and 7, 8 hours of my life. I wanted to go to the mall. I wanted to flirt with boys. If there was anything that was going to be somewhat constructive, I guess, I wanted to be outside on the roof, fixing things outside, yard work. I didn't want to be in the kitchen. And my mom's like, someday you're going to want to do this. And I'm like, no, I'll just find a guy that wants to do it for me. But instead, I got a guy that will do it with me or tell me how to do it, and I'll do it myself.
Yeah, canning. Because like my mom and stuff, like she cans, and Randy does too. Is they can venison and they can. They'll can venison. They can. Everything from the garden they'll can, basically. And look at Rick and Jane. They're constantly they got a canner running nonstop. It sounds
I don't
like.
think I could live like that though. Like that's
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how old she is, but how does she deal with like the female aspect of the wonderful life cycles that we have to deal with? And I don't know.
And you know
that's
what?
A bit too much for every day. It's fun to do it for a week and a half kind of thing, but I don't know about a whole entire 15 plus years of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome, the story I've heard about them, and I think it's great, but I don't know if I have the energy to do all of that. Plus, being almost 50,
But the interesting thing is that
late to the game.
I'm pretty sure Jane teaches at least 2 classes at prepper camp. So if you show up to them, you could probably ask her that directly. And the thing about Rick and Jane is that they'll give you kind of like their no BS answers. Like nothing they say is sugar coated. I know that, and I don't think they told us this at prepper camp. I think this probably came out during an interview. But there was a time when I can't remember if Rick was really sick or he had an injury. And Jane had to deal with her chores plus his chores for like the week and a half he was down. And she even flat out said, there were things I was not physically strong enough to do that I had to figure out ways to do because it had to happen. And it's those kinds of realities that, like, they can make homesteading extremely difficult. And yes, Jane is. I'm a better man than to report what any woman's age is because I know better. But Jane and Rick they're not 40. They're at an age where certain things are going to become more difficult as they get older.
Well, they got to figure it out.
I think that's a reasonable thing to say. I'm not physically able or emotionally prepared to go to that level of homesteading, while recognizing that there is a place you can go where you're comfortable that still gives you most of the benefit.
Yeah, I had that conversation with Phil on
Recently.
one of our walks recently, because we were very much on the same page of, we're going to find land, we're going to build, we're going to, not so much as Rick and Jane do, but to a certain extent live a lifestyle like they have. And it wasn't until recently when I told Phil, I was like, I don't want that. I've thought about it. I want to travel when we're retired. When we retire, I don't want to have to retire and then take care of something else. Like, now I've dedicated my life to taking care of this farm. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. I've got to hire people to come in when I want to leave or whatever. So we've kind of changed our plans a little bit. And I think that is important, especially for couples that are just getting into prepping, is you're going to set goals and those goals are going to change. And you have to work with each other as individuals in a relationship to understand that is most likely going to happen. 99% of the time it's going to happen. Because I don't think Rick and Jane started off their relationship going, we're gonna move to the mountains and this is what we're gonna do. I mean, they live in Florida, in the city. They both worked.
They lived in, I believe it was either Orlando or Miami.
Yeah.
Both of them worked in corporate America. Yep. He worked in TV production. I don't recall what Jane did off the top of my head, but like the two of them both had six-figure careers in corporate America in a major metro area in Florida. And they went from that to who they are today. So I think that's a reasonable assumption that neither one of them had that on their bingo card.
Right. So I think it's, as you step into this lifestyle, just know that your objectives and your goals are going to change, and you just kind of have to figure out how to stay on the same page with that.
Well, and find the middle ground. Like that's one.
Pretty much what I just said.
I'm allowed to reiterate.
I hear an echo in the room.
Well, I feel like communication's key for sure. We definitely over the years have definitely grown to communicate better and come to the realization that you can't just assume what the other one is going to be, wanting to do as well. Because
I just nod my head and say, "Okay, John."
How does that start?
That's just what I was gonna say. That's just a wife thing. Like, yeah, we just nod our heads and okay, whatever.
But when does that start?
Example, one of the things that I have a concern with this moving in this direction for us is I get kind of lazy a little bit on things and not really in the mood, so to speak, to go out to the garden and pick. I mean, we've got raspberry bushes that, oh gosh, people are going to hate me for saying this, but they went to the birds and the animals in our neighborhood because after working 40 plus hours in laundry and the dogs and the cat, I just really didn't want to go out there and pick the berries. And then what am I going to do with them? Because I don't really want to sit in the kitchen and be baking all day like a good little housey wife. I want to sit on the deck and drink some beer just like he does.
Yeah.
So that's a concern on my aspect coming into this for myself. My other concern is little Mr. Millennial over there, who doesn't believe he is one, is very addicted to technology and his phone and the games that come on a phone. My phone is literally for calling somebody or receiving a text from somebody, and I play very little bit on it. I can be all right with not being able to scroll on Facebook. My phone will sit right by us and it'll be 78% battery, and his is in his hand nonstop from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed, if there's not something scheduled for us to force him to do.
The other day, that's what I was texting him, and you texted me, and you're like, yeah, his phone died.
Right.
So you start texting from your phone.
Right. Well, hey, he's all freaked out over here. He wants you to know that he's not ignoring you. It's just his phone died. And my phone hardly ever dies.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, technology and everything, but having that mindset, having those skills, and having that mindset of, okay, if something ever were to happen, that plan, okay, this is what we can do. If something ever were to happen, if the flare goes up and we lose power and something bad happens, I mean, that's the thing, is we're not guaranteed tomorrow, whether that's in death or the way we live.
Right.
We're not guaranteed that. And so it's expected, yeah. But if something were to happen tomorrow and we lost power, it's like, okay, the skills that you learn or the skills that you know now, the skills that you might, if it happens after prepper camp and you bring home, okay, well, how do I utilize those? Okay, well, I know how to forage, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. Like, you take those skills, and even though it's one of those things where you might not want to live that life, but then you might get thrust into that life.
Right.
But it's just that, and then having that, but just, I mean, and do you have to prepare? Do you have to worry about that ever happening? No, you don't have to. But just preparing for that time will make that time easier if you start now.
Well, when we first met you and you were talking about being a prepper and all of the stuff that you do, I looked at it from a very naive point of view. As like, okay, the end of the world and everybody turns into zombies, and you've got enough bullets to kill every non-human creature.
No, I don't. Guns are bad.
Pretty close to it. And that's just not something that was in my mind frame at all.
Just how do you lug all that ammunition? I mean,
I
moved them twice, and that safe is quite heavy.
Andrew's going to be the one that has the wagon. He's going to be pulling a wagon behind him. Wait up, guys! I'm coming!
The horse, and then the pack horse, and then another pack horse behind that.
Right.
Well, we've already dubbed that if something serious like that was to happen in Michigan, that
Andrew's our first spot.
Our go bags ready. We know what we need to load up into the truck, and then we head with Andrew to his parents' property, and we'll just fend off the world as long as we can if we have to go that route. But
or hopefully by that time in the next couple of years we get our own property, So I mean that's what I'm gunning for.
Out of the city too, boy.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but I feel like what you've just described is like the most common misconception about what prepping is, because it's like, and I can't fault any person for falling into this, because like Hollywood has done us absolutely no favors as a community of portraying us, like they don't do any community favors when Hollywood gets a hold of them. But like there is that perception that prepping is this one-dimensional, it's all guns and bullets and MREs, and there's like no credence given to the fact that like there's differing levels of prepping. Like Andrew and I, we've had guests on who prep in like a 600 square foot apartment in the middle of the city in a major metro area. The way they prep is totally different than the way Andrew and I prep in the suburbs with, homes and with the ability to kind of shelter in place. And the way that Andrew preps as a single person compared to the way I prep with a family, even there's major differences in that. And that's before we even get to the other extreme end of the spectrum, which is like the hardcore homesteaders that are totally grid independent. So like I always try to point out to people, I'm like, everywhere along that spectrum between I live in the city, and if we get another COVID lockdown, I need to be able to stay here for 2 weeks and not go outside. Like if you don't have 2 weeks of food, we have a whole set of problems to talk about.
Oh, you didn't send your wife to the store every day to get the supplies that you needed? You didn't send your wife to the store every day while you stayed home?
I worked.
You worked and you can't get sick?
Listen,
my work shut down. Like my work shut down, would not even allow me to go in at all. So it gave me the time to actually prep for the wedding.
Well, but to give you a brief kind of ugly look into like our mindset at the very beginning of COVID, because like I feel like COVID is a good thing to couch preparedness in, because it's a more universal experience than like Hurricane Katrina, which most of the rest of the country didn't experience the way I did, the way we did. But like with COVID, when COVID first kind of hit the U.S. shores and there was no reliable information about how bad it was going to be, how fast it would spread, there was no reliable information, put it that way. And Gillian and I had a serious discussion about what do we do. And I said, we break all contact with all the rest of humanity. If we have to, we deck screw that front door shut, and we wait 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, we're going to know exactly how bad this is. Because in 2 weeks, either the entire cities of New York and Los Angeles will be dead, or they won't. And we'll have some kind of data point at that point to modulate our behavior
so that we're balancing risk versus living our lives. But I point out to people all the time, I'm like, the only reason I even had that card in my deck to say we're going to break contact with the rest of humanity for 2 weeks is because I had 6 months of food stocked up. If you don't have 6 months, if you don't have 2 weeks of food, then that bingo card of I stay here and shelter in place for 2 weeks, that's not there. So you don't have that as an option. Your only option at that point is to go out to the grocery store. And yeah, we know people who they don't have 3 days worth of food in their house. They go out to eat 6 times a week as a default. And like when I look at that, I say those people are like at a 0 level of preparedness. Whether you consider like Gillian and myself and Andrew to be like at a 5 and Rick and Jane to be at a 10, like however you set up your chart, I guess the point is like the point is to be more prepared than you would be if you were doing nothing. So whether that is hardcore homesteading and living off the land for y'all, or it's simply as much as we have 6 months extra food stacked up, we have a generator in case the power goes out, we have things in place to deal with problems. Like there's no such thing as over prepared or prepared enough. It's just I am more prepared than I was without, in my opinion.
And I mean, and Josh and Karina are prime examples because, like, I mean, we're constantly getting the question of like, okay, where do we begin? And they're perfect examples of just get into it and just start doing it. Figure out where. Okay, well, we're going to go out west. Okay, well, what do we need? Okay, we have backpacks. Okay, what do we need for backpacks? Okay, now let's build a bug out bag or just a backpack that we can have that's stacked with some stuff. Okay, now what other supplies do we need? Well, we need to go camping. And you just start. And that's what I feel like that they did was, I mean, that's what I feel like you guys did was you just basically was like, hey, we're going to do this. And okay, let's just start doing it.
Yeah, we didn't even have any cooking supplies stuff to make anything before we went out west. And now I think our camping kitchen is better than any of the stuff I've got in my house as far as what I've got in my kitchen to cook with. And I'm not real confident yet with cooking with the cast iron, but man, those meals tasted so good out there. And I don't know if some of it just seemed like more like, okay, I'm not in a one kitchen. I'm out in the wild.
Open fire pit.
Yeah.
Cast iron over a fire it's one of the best things.
It was really cool. Like one day it started raining and I don't like rain. I know we need it, but I don't like it hitting me in the face. I don't like my hair looks like a drowned rat when I get wet. So I wasn't very excited about that day that it rained, but Josh grabbed the umbrella and he held it over my head while I was cooking, and that was kind of fun, and he was proud of me for being out in the rain.
Not to mention it hailed and everything else that day. Yeah, it was
then,
quite vicious day. It was early spring. It was late spring, early summer when we went out. It was like the second week of June.
And it was still cold.
All the bison calves were being birthed, and I mean it was quite eye-opening as far as that whole situation. But the way it could be sunshine 5 minutes ago, and then all of a sudden it just comes right over the mountains, and you've got rain and hail that hit you. And I mean, it really tested us how fast we could get our tent set up into the back of the truck bed. And okay, we haven't eaten all day. We've been traveling, and we need to eat something real quick. How are we going to get a fire started? Oh, well, I've got dry wood in the back of the truck that I kept covered. So we got some of that out and started up a quick fire, and just tried to keep it covered until we got that done and went from there. But yeah, it was quite fun.
I redeemed myself on the fire starting aspect, being that like 8 years ago, we had a fire at our house that I started completely inappropriately, and I knew better, but I was doing it anyways. And I got burned.
You remember that?
Like,
you were there.
Up my arm, half my face.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because I remember you running away.
Andrew started a joke that anytime there was a fire going and somebody got injured with it, that they got Karina-ed. So that went around for a good grip. And Josh would not let me start a fire.
I wouldn't. No.
I was grounded basically.
I was grounded. Second-degree burns on her arm. It wasn't good.
Yeah, it was so stupid.
We gave you some whiskey afterwards.
But then when we went out west, I joked with him and I was like, "Are you going to let me start the fire?" And he said, "Yeah, here's some flint and steel." And
She got it with
I
the flint and
started
steel.
it, and that was so cool. I felt
Yeah.
like me all over again from the Girl Scout days, being a kid.
Well, and then I mean, just like so, a prime example for like what you guys are just talking about. Okay, so you have it's starting to rain, and so you're like, okay, we got to get shelter up. Okay, we got our shelter up, but now we're hungry. We haven't eaten anything. Well, now it's like, okay, let's instead of starting a fire, what can I like? That's where you have alternatives. So that's where you have like uh, maybe freeze dried meals and a way to boil water.
Right.
Like an alternative ways of cooking. And so
Right.
that's where you build on, and that's where I started. Where I've been like, I want to have three ways of starting, either three ways of starting a fire, three ways of cooking food. Like I want to have the redundancies.
Well,
in
and now
place.
that the boys are grown up and not eating a
Mhm.
whole 2 weeks worth of groceries in a matter of 36 hours, like they would do,
Yep.
my cupboards withstand a little bit more food now.
Yeah.
And now I'm just, it's just the two of us. You want some fish sticks?
Dino
I
nuggies.
Dino nuggies.
I don't have to create a menu for 5 people anymore. It's just him and I, and he's
So
like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we live off basically. We've got it calculated. We live off 2 deer a year. And that's pretty much our red meat. We don't buy any
We haven't bought any hamburgers
processed
from the
hamburger
store
or anything.
any steaks from the store. I went through a stage for a while where I was a vegan and didn't want to eat any type of meat. I still don't drink milk, but that's the only thing I've gone back to eating meat. But when I did eat meat, it was just the venison. And Josh would yell at me and he's like, Karina, you're the only one here that doesn't want to eat all this other processed stuff. You're not even bringing home any steaks. And I'm like, you obviously haven't been in the grocery store with me because this meat looks horrible. It wasn't even appealing. And I told him it's not because I'm not interested in it. I'll cook it for you. I have no problem. I think it smells great, but the selection out there was just awful in the stores. So I think the next thing that we want to do is either get like half a pig and maybe a quarter cow, just so we have something other than venison to store in the freezer to shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent, and I think Phil, this is something that we've talked about quite a few times on the podcast, is you have to prep for emotions too. Once, when everything hits the fan and you're at that stage, you're going to get to a point where venison is going to bring down morale. Like, you're going to need something to change that up.
Right,
So,
like, oh, not again.
yeah, I know. This one here, for the longest time, we prepped beans and rice. And it was like, yeah, that's a great staple. But after the third day of eating beans and rice, I might punch you in your face. Like, where's the chocolate? Where's the baking supplies? Where's the peanut butter? Like, where's the stuff that's going to bring comfort when we're in this really crappy position? And I'm going to turn to food.
And to that end, like, we start off with beans and rice because, it's cost efficient, it's filling. Like, I mean, it's a good base. You need beans and rice. But now I also have like a 5-gallon bucket that is baking supplies because I'm a baker. It's cornmeal, so I can make cornbread, and it's flour, and it's baking powder, and it's a whole huge bulk bag of chocolate chips, and it's cocoa. It's like anything I need minus like milk, and I have powdered milk in there as a last resort if there's no real milk to be had. But like, I have everything I need in there, and we always bulk buy eggs. So like, I could bake cookies, I could bake cakes, I could bake brownies. Like, we will be the only house in the worst of times that has fresh baked goods and fresh roasted coffee, because I jokingly say I refuse to go through the apocalypse without my cup of coffee in the morning. I mean, hell, this is number 2. But it really is more of a, I refuse to go through a bad situation without the ability to stoke my family's morale. For me, that's coffee. For the two of them,
It's brownies and chocolate chip cookies.
Josh isn't a big sweet tooth guy, so I don't have to do a whole lot of baking goods in that direction. but I need to learn how to grow a monster tree because we drink monsters like they're going out of style. When
Right.
we take our
I've got
returns back, these people probably think they're like, you guys are the most caffeinated alcoholics I have ever seen. It is Monsters, Mountain Dew, Pepsi, and beer cans that I'm taking.
Josh, you need to go take those herbal classes. There's all kinds of things out there that can give you that same feeling
This
legally.
Yeah.
This one over here got away from drinking coffee a while back because it was messing with her stomach, and has really fallen into, what is it, Rise? It's reishi mushrooms.
It's more. It's 7 different mushrooms, but it's a coffee. It's got some coffee in it. It's not Phil's coffee, but it is. It's a mushroom coffee. So I'm getting cordyceps and lion's mane and reishi, and I mean, there's all sorts of things in there. MCT oil, which helps with all kinds of things too. But I mean, it's more of an herbal, I guess you will, coffee. And then, of course, I loaded up with lavender and cinnamon and all that stuff, collagen, chocolate.
And I keep telling her that if that is going to, that we probably need to add some of that to
Yeah,
the preps.
we do.
Because like I've got a caffeine bucket, and it's nothing but tea bags, green coffee beans. Because I mean, I roast and grind and process my own from scratch. And I've told her, I'm like, I put the tea bags in there back when you were a tea drinker. It's just regular old black tea like Lipton. But I'm like, but if I need to pull that out and put in the Rise, that's fine. We just need to do that. I mean, that's another good point about where Gillian said earlier, like your plans are going to change, your preps are going to evolve. Because like our preps are really an extension. Like there's a base level of our preps that is minimum sustainment. That's the rice and the beans. But then like our preps have changed over the years as our diets have changed. Like there was a time when we had lots and lots of instant macaroni in the preps because, we had like a 5-year-old, and 5-year-olds won't eat anything except for macaroni and cheese some days. And now our preps have evolved. They've changed. Those buckets have been broken down and repacked, I don't know, twice over the last 5 years. And every time I do it, this isn't something any of us eat anymore. So let's get rid of it. Let's put something in that we do eat. Mm-hmm. And then there's stuff in the preps that's like Vienna sausages and tuna fish. No one in the house eats it except me. But I know that if I'm out working in the yard like we were after Hurricane Ida, a quick, immediate potted meat type of meal is going to put the protein and everything back in me. I need to keep doing hard work. So I have that. And that's what I always try to push people with the idea of specific to food preparedness. It's always about, this is the lane I'm in with my diet, so this is where I need to expand and get deeper. I need to figure out a way to get this lane deeper, because I tell everybody that talks about, well, I need to buy like Mountain House and that be my prep. I'm like, well, Mountain House is a good idea. It has its place. But are you going to eat Mountain House 3 meals a day? If the answer is no, then that's not the only thing you need to get. You need to buy the stuff you're going to eat.
Yeah, definitely a emotional prepper. You have to have some emotion when you prep.
Or at least some regard for emotion.
Yeah.
Unless you're an emotionless combat vet like I am.
You are not. You are so
Well, I mean, but that's the thing though. Like the whole food thing, Phil and I have talked about in past episodes, is that redundancy and having that ability to sit there and be like, okay, I'm busting my ass today, and I need something quick to eat. Okay, now I can do a Mountain House. That's quick. Okay, now maybe it's going into lunch or it's breakfast or whatever it is, and I don't want Mountain House, but okay, I have venison, I have rabbit, I have whatever. Okay, I have time to make this stew. I have time to make this food. And I mean, you can sit there and you can plan for your meals. And I mean, at prepper camp is a perfect example, because there's times at prepper camp where we'll wake up and be like, you know what, we need to have something really quick. Well, we'll have coffee, might throw some water in the biscuits and gravy Mountain House, scarf that down, head down to camp, or head down to the classes or whatever. Spend all day in the classes, maybe come back for lunch. Otherwise, it's like, okay, well, I remember for our first year, I packed MREs in my backpack, just so that we're sitting there at camp or at class. Don't really feel like walking up the hill. It's not that far, but still, it's like, you know what, I want something now. So you tear open and eat the crackers out of the MREs, or you mix the drink or the electrolyte mix with the water, stuff like that. Just something to get you by, and then you can get back to camp and okay, let's start planning for dinner. And I mean, we didn't go hungry. I can tell you that. We eat really good at prepper camp, just so you guys know.
Nice.
I mean, and that's what people make fun of. I've heard people like they'll poke fun because they're like, "Oh, well, it's prepper camp. Aren't you supposed to be surviving?" But like, listen,
Not our crew, okay?
Yeah, we're having fun here, and there's days. I mean, well, our first year or our second year, I think I brought my smoker, and I mean, when I don't know if Wynn's gonna be there this year or not, but I mean, he did like he brought backstraps, bear tenderloin. He had the the back straps from deer, venison stuff that I smoked, and we did that, and we did steaks one night, hamburgers. Like, I mean, we eat really well, but that all comes from the planning though, and that all comes from let's in the morning let's do this, in the afternoon let's do this kind of thing, and let's just have a plan. But
when we went out west, I definitely overpacked. Like,
you will.
I thought, like, we're gonna need this, and by the time we got back, we had a lot of venison that we had to hurry up and eat because it was going to go bad. And Josh was like, "I don't know why you brought all of this." And I'm like,
shucks.
I honestly thought that every single
Good thing we had the dog
was going to have to be made at wherever we were putting up for the night. And then we also realized that there was a lot of times where we were so busy doing stuff that we weren't really actually hungry. We just wanted to snack on something real quick and then go back to doing whatever we were doing. And there's a few times where he thought he was going to pass out, so he'd open up his square cheese and
it'd be the bacon. I think the leftover bacon was the biggest helper, that cooked bacon that we didn't finish from the morning and so forth, and you'd keep it for the afternoon when we're backpacking up through the mountains and so forth. And you get a little winded up there, and it's like, man, I need something to eat, and the leftover bacon was like perfect, give Beauregard a little snack too, and he was ready to go.
And that's the thing is, like, we were just talking about carpooling. So basically, instead of me driving my truck, you guys driving your truck, talking about me just driving with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me now, that has me thinking now it's okay. So now you take that space that I had in the truck. Now we need to fit 3 in your guys' truck. Okay, well, what can I downsize? So I'm definitely going to be going through. I'll be going through, and I mean, I was already planning on downsizing and bringing minimal.
Communicate with each other. There's no reason for us, if we're going to be on the same site.
Yeah.
For us to have cooking utensils that, you know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, I don't need a spatula. You don't need a spatula. Phil will have a spatula. I mean, there'll be
kind of things.
there'll be, and that's the thing though, and that's what we always.
4 of something.
Right, but that's what we always joked about was if you forget something, there's going to be something that somebody at camp that has it, and then
we call it prepper camp bingo because it's like, oh, I forgot my spatula. I got one.
Yeah.
And then
it doesn't matter. Stacy's going to have everything.
Yeah. Yeah, Stacy has everything. You'll like Stacy.
A lot of no offense, Bob. Andrew, sorry. I want you to bring your things, but I also want you to see what Josh and I have.
Oh no, you guys bring your own stuff. I'm not bringing nothing.
Just bring bacon.
I'll bring bacon and I'll bring bacon, my hammock and sleeping bag.
Just so that you can experience how beginner prepping we are and what we probably could use.
I think we're going to impress him a lot.
You guys,
he's seen us
do.
I
mean, you guys aren't
slickers know how to hang
you guys
out
aren't amateurs.
Well, but the cool thing, I mean, at least from a camping perspective, about coming to camp at prepper camp is that, like, I don't want to say you're doing it with training wheels, but you're doing it as you're coming into a community of people who most of us, like, whether our interests, regardless of like what kind of living outside of our houses, independent from the normal hotels and Airbnb system, like, we've all done this enough that there's not many things I can think of you would come out there and say, oh, I forgot this at home, that somebody's not going to be able to cover you with. So like Andrew said, we've all joked about it because it's happened to every one of us at one point. Something we thought was packed wasn't packed, couldn't find it, got it buried in the bottom of a camp box, and somebody else took care of them. It's a good way to jump into this. And like, what I usually recommend to people that are first getting started camping is camp at a place close enough you could drive home in the middle of the night. That way you're doing it with training wheels, and if you screw up or something breaks or if your tent falls in on it, because it's happened, then you can just go home. you have an escape plan. Then coming to prepper camp, because you are coming from pretty fair distance, you're at least coming out there with a bunch of people who can figure out how to shore up whatever trouble you might run into. So
when we went out west, his Josh's mom was very upset with us because we wouldn't give
We didn't
her
have an itinerary.
Right. And it's like, we're going out west. When we get there, we'll send a message letting you know that we got to wherever we're at, whatever time we stop, we're here at this location. She wanted like a whole breakdown, and it's like, no, that's not how we're planning this trip. This trip is just, we've got an end destination of where we want to arrive to, and we've got a couple ideas of where we may or may not, depending on how it goes. We might stop there, we might not.
We virtually went out there for a week and only planned on 2 days at a set destination out west.
And then we got to that set destination, and it was set up the most poorly I had ever seen. I started crying because it was my portion of our trip. Like, this was, we're going out together. Josh has got some plans. I've got some plans. And I was so excited for us to experience my plan, and then we get there and it was a flippin' nightmare. Hailing everywhere. The people that are in charge of this place, they couldn't even get back to where we were at. If we wouldn't have had the truck, we wouldn't have made it there, period.
Well, we even messed up the truck, and that's why I'm glad I brought the tools, because I was able to get underneath the truck and fix it up.
Like, you expect the truck
Just
to break
in
down,
case.
you never know. And sure enough, he's getting out the gloves and he's wrenching on things and whacking things and fixing the truck.
I do that with Phil a lot. I'm always like, do we really need to bring that? Like, when Ida happened, now we didn't need his stuff, but we were going to check on my parents because they had some damage at their house as well. And Phil was packing up like we were going camping and that we were about to come across a horde of zombies on the way. And I was like, come on now, it's 40 minutes down the road. I don't think we're really going to need all this.
Let me give you the quick packing list. First of all, I had chainsaw, fuel, bar oil.
Yes, I mean, that's normal.
Because we needed that. But I was also bringing I think I just took I had like half a case of MREs. I just chucked it in the back of the truck. I had a 5-gallon water can, chucked that in the back of the truck.
All needed.
And then when she got into the truck, I put at her feet my plate carrier, which is a whole armor setup, and then took my rifle and stuck it down between her legs. And I'm like, you know how to friggin', I literally chambered it, put the safety on, and I said, if you need to shoot, just flip the safety off and start shooting. And she's giving me the look like, really? But
we weren't going into New Orleans.
But herein lies the problem. I packed everything I thought, and I can't remember if I threw the tent in or if I just assumed if we got hung up someplace we would just sleep in the truck that night. But again, I came into preparedness because right on the heels of a year-long deployment in Iraq, Hurricane Katrina upended my state, and I was right back on orders for that. So I spent the best part of 2 years off and on living in very weird situations in my 20s. And I came to preparedness from the idea of, 6 zip codes have been wiped out by this Cat 4 hurricane. There's no power, there's no drinkable water, there's no food, there is no emergency support, there are no ambulances, there are no police. You are living in a war zone. And if you get into trouble, you fight your way out or you suck it. There's just no other way around it. And I was also coming to this from the perspective of, we're only driving 45 minutes away. But depending on where the trees are down, that could be an hour and a half. So the truck's got to be filled up. I've got an extra 5-gallon gas can in the back of the truck. We are ready to drive all the way around the state if necessary to get back home, because that was where our preps were. And I had everything in the truck. I felt like I needed to fight my way through hell and get out. And I had everything in my truck. I felt like I needed to stay in my family for 2 days. And it's like I told her, I'm like, if today goes to plan, we will go there, we'll cut a couple of trees down, we'll put their siding or whatever back up, and we'll be home this afternoon. Not a problem. But if anything doesn't go to plan, all of this stuff is going to be necessary immediately. So, I'm sure a couple of my neighbors probably thought of it as probably had their eyebrows cocked when they saw me hauling an AR-15 and a armor setup out to the truck. But sorry to say, but like I've been in situations where the only thing between you and a really bad day is the things you have on you, and I just wasn't willing to assume, oh, I just need my chainsaw and a bottle of water. That's just not how we do things.
See, when we went out west, me being naive to, I know there's a lot of dangers out there, whether they're via another person or animal, and so I'm like, okay, well, we've got this $60 bear spray if we need it. I don't plan on being really anywhere where there's going to be a bear, but I guess you don't really know. And then there was one time when on our trip that we couldn't get to the next destination in a daylight time where there were people to be able to hook us up to our next rustic spot at a campground. And Josh wanted to pull over to the side of this most beautiful, I don't even know how to describe
The side of a canyon
it.
in
Was
Wyoming.
so gorgeous. And we were going to just stay right there. And he's like, we don't have the gun. And I'm like, we don't need a gun. What is going to happen out here? But so we slept at a rest area in the truck, just like the semi truck drivers. And he's got this big old knife sitting between his legs. And I'm like, do you expect something? He's like, you never know. And so like that was one of the other things that we were supposed to do today, was to shoot some handguns with Bobo to get me a little bit more familiar and more comfortable. I'm used to shotguns and rifles for hunting purposes, but not so much
kind of girl.
Self-defense mechanism. I think mainly because my personality and my attitude towards people is probably a good thing that I don't have a handgun. Especially driving down the road, I can see why people get shot driving down the road because holy idiots out there. And just on the way here, I think I could have shot 3 people for being stupid and they're driving. So I probably shouldn't have the handgun. I should know how to use it if there's an emergency purpose. But I don't think that I should be having one that sits cutely in my purse next to me. I might wind up.
I'm second
I might wind up in an orange
Second
suit,
thought, we're leaving her at home.
and I don't think that I would look good.
I'm not going to be an
prison.
accomplice, or I'm not going to be anything like. But,
I don't wanna
Benjamin in the comments said truck gun.
Good Lord.
Truck gun. Yeah, see, the only thing I was worried about was state lines and so forth, especially with us going out west from Michigan. You know, you're dealing with having to cross the state of Illinois, and the Illinois gun laws are like completely ridiculous. And you know, having to drive through the city of Chicago,
go up to the UP. Up to the UP,
and so that's what we want to do next time is probably go up through the UP and hit through Wisconsin, Minnesota, but you know, and head out west that way. But that was my biggest worry with carrying a gun in the truck and crossing the state lines and regulations and so forth, and not being totally educated on that quite a bit yet. But you know, next time definitely we will definitely be a little bit more prepared for a situation like that, because I've definitely passed up on the most beautiful spot to sit and truck tent in Wyoming for sure.
So before
and just FYI, I really am not going to kill somebody. I don't want anybody to be like, "Oh my God!" She literally said on the internet that she's going to kill people.
It's on the interwebs.
For legal purposes, that was a joke.
Mostly. Totally kidding.
For the NSA or the agent listening to us right now. So while we're
how are the kids?
Yeah, right. But before we wrap up, so what are the next steps with you guys? Like, what are you looking forward to at Prepper Camp, and then what are some next steps in your preparedness journey?
I'm looking forward to some of the classes. I still have to look at the schedule and find out which classes I really actually want to take. But I feel like the more, and I'm one of these kind of people too, that like the more I learn about something, I don't want to say I like jump in head first, but it gets me really super excited about things and gives me a different mindset of, okay, I can do this and this is going to be fun. And I'm going to learn so much from so many different other people that do this all the time. And it won't I'm afraid like we're going to get there and people are going to take one look at Josh and I, and they're going to be like,
No, you'd be
Look at
surprised.
these
No.
youths. They don't even.
No, they're not.
I don't want to feel like a beacon that says newbie.
Nope.
No.
Well,
You're-
first off, you're going to be with the
Here.
Matter of Facts group, so they're going to be like, "Cool, y'all have new people," but you'd be surprised the type of people you're going to see out there. Phil likes to talk about the time he saw a woman in pearls and heels out there taking
not
classes.
exaggerating.
So
Wow.
if anyone's
that's
going
not
to
going to be me on that aspect, but like I'm hoping that, and it seems like the people that are in this type of community, I would hope that they wouldn't be snubby towards two people who are trying to learn
I don't think it's that way.
and gather something new, so that we can someday be equal to that. But
yeah.
I think you're gonna be. I can't wait till after.
But I feel like
after-
I'm going to ask some really rando, weird questions that people are going to be like, "Wow,
Nah.
I didn't even really think
No.
about that aspect." But
No, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious to talk to you on our way home from Prepper Camp. Keep what you just said in mind, because on our way back from Prepper Camp, I want to ask you again, like your takeaways and like what you thought overall. Because
I'll probably be going 100 mile an hour.
Yeah,
of,
probably.
Like,
I
oh,
was
this, I
too.
learned this, I learned that, and
but I really want to know. Like, I really want to know your thoughts, because you're like, well, we don't want people to like look at us and judge that we're new and all this stuff. Your Prepper Camp is probably one of the most like one of the places you can go where you can ask somebody questions and you literally don't know, and you're gonna find someone that will sit there and spend 2 hours with you to teach you something.
right.
And they're
you
not
know,
always the
they
instructors.
always tell you,
Yeah.
there's the only dumb question is the question you don't ask.
Mhm.
But I've asked some pretty stupid questions in my life,
We all have.
and I get like, "Are you serious? You really gonna ask that?" Especially
Well, but I would always offer, like, Andrew and I, we've already put out the schedule that, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I think at 9:30 in the morning, we're going to do kind of a morning show at Prepper Camp and then put it out on the airwaves for everybody that couldn't make it to listen. But like, we're also holding some open spots throughout Friday and throughout Saturday for attendees that want to come on the show and talk about their experience. So, I mean, open invite. We're going to be sitting down there in the vendor booth several hours on those 2 days anyway. And I know a guy who can get you on the show.
Okay.
glad
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I just
super
think-
excited about this.
As long as it doesn't interfere with my classes.
That's why there's 3 time slots on Friday and 3 more on Saturday. That way, I figure, like, I didn't want to have a lot of commitments throughout the day on Sunday, because Andrew and I are going to want to take some classes too, I'm sure. But also because, like, the attendance is really highest on Friday and Saturday. So I figure that is the day to have the most effort put in or to be available for interviews. And then Sunday we'll do our morning show and we'll play the rest of the day by ear.
I think it's important to just remember going into this that the reason Rick and Jane started Prepper Camp is for people like you guys and people like us 10 years ago who were just getting into it, to introduce the lifestyle to people. The reason why there's 50 classes in the weekend, probably even more, is so that you can get a more well-rounded experience and introduce yourself to new things. And remember that the people that are there are really experts in their field, and they want to talk to you about their expertise. Look at this guy here. He wants to talk your ear off about the things that he's passionate about. Well, all of these people are passionate about what they are an expert in. And when you have people that come in and they're excited and they're building their passion for this lifestyle, they want to share it with you. And then you can't go in there thinking that you're going to ask stupid questions. You're not going to ask stupid questions. Coming from a teacher, there really isn't a stupid question. Now, there might be times where I'm going to look at a student and be like, really? Okay, let's go there. Let's talk about this. But I think you're going to be surprised when you get there how much you already fit in. You are not an outsider when you go to Prepper Camp.
Well, that would be cool, because
Just don't wear your heels, Karina.
I don't wear heels.
I mean, hey,
Don't, because you're going to be walking up hills and
She doesn't wear
It's gonna be money.
I'm just going to say,
I wear my cowboy boots. That's
Yeah.
like as fancy heels
comfortable.
as I got.
Wear
Perfect.
something you don't mind getting kind of wet if it's mucky. You're gonna want to
Oh,
bring flip
God,
flops,
yes.
kind of boots, like something to.
I don't have flip flops.
Okay.
don't Guys, don't
I wore
wear
tennis
flip
shoes the
flops.
whole. I wore
Don't wear
tennis
flip
shoes the whole
flops.
time.
Well, no, I'm
I
saying
wore-
flip-flops around camp.
No,
Like, if you
I,
head to camp. Oh, I would. That's
okay,
Right
but
around-
I am
right around
forced to.
camp.
Yeah, but
Going
Andrew,
down-
you
going
wear
down the
flip-flops.
classes.
Andrew, you wear flip flops and it's 30 degrees and
I was
cold.
about to say, you can't
But
take
boots-
flip flop advice from these two.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that a couple years ago, just to recount very quickly, I was wearing flip flops around the campsite and it had been raining, and I slipped
You
on
busted
some.
ankle.
No. I caught the edge of a sharp rock and it went right through the side of my toe.
Oh,
And yeah, I had three I had three paramedics giving their opinion about whether or not I needed to go get stitches, and I vetoed all their ideas and fixed it myself because
Butterfly.
Nah, I think that was medical tape mostly, a little bit of gauze and some medical tape. I pinched it together, wound it up real tight. But combat vet, we're familiar with stitching up boo-boos with the wrong stuff.
I do think that once prepper camp is over with, you are going to go 90 to nothing, and you bring a notebook, bring a pen, paper, whatever, because you're going to take notes. You're going to take notes about things you didn't think you were going to take notes about, and then you're going to go back through them, and then you're going to start researching them, and then you're going to start talking to the guys on the way home. I'm telling you, I was 90 to nothing for 3 months after I left prepper camp.
It is a total gateway drug.
It is.
No, I'm looking.
I wish I could go.
No, you should. I wish you could too.
I know.
But,
I only get 8 days off in the year, so this
Yeah.
would take up 3 days.
But I'll be there.
Oh,
awesome.
dang.
I know I'm not the fun one, but
I don't know, Phil. You seem kind of fun to me.
He's fun.
But all right, well, let's wrap this up. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to prepper camp. I'm looking forward to getting these two more into it because it's fun introducing people to it, and I think that's why Phil and I. That's why we really started the show. Or I mean, Phil started the show, but that's why we really pushed the show in a direction to get people into preparedness. And so I'm kind of curious to see your guys' eagerness and to see like how much fun you guys have.
I
And
think
that'll
it'd
be
be
fun for
cool
me,
to
too.
maybe do another one of these
Afterwards?
little
Wrap-up
shows
session.
afterwards, and
Yeah.
and just
We'll
see
be
where
recording
our
a lot.
mindset is
Yeah.
compared to like now we're excited because it's something new and we haven't experienced it, and we're gonna have so much information and knowledge being thrown at us,
Mhm.
and because like you guys said, everybody that goes to this at some point in time were exactly like us.
Exactly.
And
100%.
I'm super excited to know that like we're going to be talking to people that aren't going to look down at us or roll their eyes or
Everybody has to start
know.
somewhere. Everybody has started somewhere. Whether it
Barbie
was
boy in
15
Hollywood
years
going
ago.
to Pepper's Camp.
whether it was 15, 20 years ago, or even you just started. Everybody starts somewhere. So it's just great that you guys have started, and it's great to. And I'm excited to see where you guys go with it. So
Well, just after the last podcast that we watched of Phil and Gillian,
It's
sorry.
okay. It's fine.
Josh went right online and he ordered his little log auger thingy, and I guess we're gonna try to figure out how to make a meal off the wood and a rock.
we'll figure it out.
And
We got
I
it.
thought the auger was gonna be a little bit bigger, and he was a little offended.
Yeah, I
But
go. Yeah.
It's like what are you gonna cook with this 4-inch?
It's not the size
True.
of the auger; it's the heat of the flame.
There you go.
Well,
Exactly.
there-
Thank you,
And that's how we
Thank you,
and that's
Phil.
how we end the show.
That is where we end this one because we're going down a new path.
All right. Well, Josh, Karina, I'm
Awesome.
looking forward to
Actually,
meeting.
you guys. It's great.
I look forward to meeting you all in person, and I can only wait with bated breath to see like what you think of this community and this group that you're going to meet, and it's going to be fun to see what y'all's reaction to prepper camp is. It truly is like I have not felt anything like the energy I feel there, and I think it's an experience that anybody that's even a little bit curious about preparedness really owes themselves at least once.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll round this one out. You three have fun at the gun range, and I'm going to find some trouble to get into today.
Bye.
Matter of
Bye,
Facts
guys.
Podcast
See you
heading
guys.
out. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.